Okay. All right. We're still recording here, or recording again. My guest is Dr. Jake Wade. He's the Dean of Timothy Bible College. And we've talked about the whole deception here. You know, it's like, who's the God of the Jews? Who's the God of the Masons? You know, is it the God of this earth? Is it Lucifer? Is it Satan? Or you know, has somehow is the God of Abraham that told him to go kill his kid, was that somebody pretending to be God? What? How far back does the deception go? The whole motto of the Israeli Mossad, which is simply a descendant from the KGB, from the Bolshevik Revolution, from the army of the Soviet Union, in my opinion. You know, how far back does this deception go?
Well, we know that if you're going way back, that Jacob managed to talk his brother out of the birthright for a bowl of soup. That itself was deception, so it goes back pretty far. You touched on the mark of the beast, and if I might have about 30 seconds to clear that up for folks.
Absolutely.
666, if you do the research, in Hebrew, you can't add it up. It doesn't come out right. If you look at it literally and read it directly from the Greek, 666 says it is not a given number like we think. It's not going to be tattooed anywhere. It is the number of man. And the number of man being 666 is incomplete. And if you look back to Revelation 12, that ties into the evil or alter trinity. The three names of Lucifer or Satan are that trinity, and so you have to have 3 sixes to match that. And that means that they are now Babylon. They are humbled and bowed to the evil beast or the evil entity, which is the satanic trio, the satanic trinity. And it's, you know, there's a parallel empire here or kingdom. Satan's got one, God's got the other. There's always an antithesis of his, or a pretender to his, which is a counterfeit. And the completed number of man is 777. When we get to the point of throwing God into the mix, recognizing he is in control, he is the creator, we get to that 0.7 instead of 0.6. Our number as saints is 7. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
The number that the UN or the New World Order or the European Common Market would have us eventually knuckle under to, I'm afraid we're going to be a little late with that, because our country's already doing that with the numbers they apply. You go get a marriage license, you have a number. You get a driver's license, you got a number. They already have the system set up. All you got to do, we've got everybody so into credit cards and plastic that if you don't have one, you don't even get to buy gasoline. And it's easy to transition that into the point you can't get into a grocery store without one.
And the whole
won't take much.
The whole transfer of that number digitally into a small little electronic chip in your hand. Is a very...
and they're already doing that. They claim it's a medical emergency chip, and they're trying to get it into anybody they can.
Health Link is what they call it.
Yeah, and it'll go in a surgical needle.
And Aaron Russo told us that he, in a private conversation with Nicholas Rockefeller, that Rockefeller told him that was the idea, to chip everybody, and anybody that got out of line will turn off your chip and you won't be able to buy or sell.
And he died right after he started releasing such information, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Fast-acting cancer.
Yeah.
Now we've got people like Edgar Steele that's been put in jail by the ADL, by the FBI, by the whole B'nai B'rith network of judges and reciting. This guy's been put in jail. We've had veterans down here murdered, killed by SWAT teams for him walking out of his bedroom carrying his rifle.
Yeah.
So it seems to me that it's just really heating up. What they've done to me, what they've done to Aaron Russo, what they did to Bill Cooper, what they did to Randy Weaver, what they did to the Branch Davidians, that's expanding now, and it's happening to gun owners, it's happening to Tea Party members.
Well, it mirrors the very oppression that we see all the way through history.
If you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Amen. Amen. The first thing I have my students do, we're still teaching in high school. I've got it on disc where you can do it from any place in the world, but we have CD diploma courses, and the first thing I ask them to do in history is make up a timeline. On the timeline, you're going to begin, and you can get it anywhere off the internet, a decent timeline. You will find all these things you and I are talking about have taken place throughout history over and over again.
Yes.
New World Order's a misnomer. There's nothing new about it.
That's what I've always told people, man. There ain't no such thing as a New World Order. The money changers Jesus ran out of the temple are still with us. They just call the temple the Federal Reserve or the Bank of England now.
That is exactly right.
Now, come out of her. Again, I look for answers. And I ask myself, Jake, what happened? How did people live 100 years ago? 500 years ago? 1,000 years ago? How did they live? How did they exist? They didn't have computers, they didn't have television, they didn't have anything. How did they live?
I've got a simple answer for you. If I put my wife on the phone with you, she would tell you she has come to the realization that sitting out here where we sit is freedom, is wealth. I have a paid-for piece of property. I've got a little tiny house here that's very nice. It's paid for. I drive a vehicle. It's paid for. I don't owe anybody anything. She doesn't owe anybody anything. Well, she's got one little debt we're trying to clear, but aiming at being debt-free and then capable of living off of where we live, even if the whole economy falls apart. I've still got shotgun shells and I can kill the hogs running by the door. It's the way, like you said, if you go back 150 years, it's the way we lived and it worked.
I don't want to wind up like my mother and grandmother, who were drug addicts. I never knew this growing up. I never understood that my mother and grandma, we went to the doctor every week. I thought I was from a very sickly family.
Drugs will do that.
and they died and they're old folks. I don't want to die that way. I want to retire into a village with kids running around, animals running around, goats mowing the lawn, like it used to be.
Yeah.
And if the people in that village, let's say there's only 10, let's say there's 20. If they're living in a low-cost structure, like a teepee, like a yurt, like an earth home, like an adobe home, if you want to make your own bricks, play in the dirt, knock yourself out. We've been building like that for thousands of years. You can do it the lazy way, put it in earth bags and then water it down and you got concrete blocks, But there's all kinds of ways to exist. And if we grow our own food and generate our own energy from what God gave us, wind, solar, magnetics, then we don't need the government. We are doing exactly what God did. It's what God instructed His people to do in Egypt.
Exactly.
When there was a famine going on, and every headline right now is talking about the food supply is threatened, the food supply. There's an E. coli breakout going on in Germany because they voted for Palestine in the UN.
So, well, we are in many ways poisoning ourselves with the commercialized entities such as the groceries and the pharmaceuticals, because if you look at what they're putting into our their meat, I don't buy the meat, but the meat, the vegetables, that sort of thing, Kay and I are buying our vegetables on the street when we can, right down the road here. They bring them from their farm and sell them straight out. The highly commercialized food processors have so much poison in what we're eating that I don't trust it anymore. I think it's part of our mental problem, part of our physical problems, the basis for cancer and all the viral infections, that sort of thing. The same thing with the pharmaceutical industry. They are poisoning our people.
Well, they don't make any money if you're well. If you're healthy, they don't make any money.
Right. That's right.
So that's why the same people that are producing our seeds with the pesticides already sown into it.
Right.
You know, well, it's the ninth plank on the Communist Manifesto. Corporate
Amen.
farms. Corporate farms.
Well, if we did what you wanted to do, and I don't know that we have much time to get it done, because they're already talking about trying to make illegal some of these things we want to grow in our own backyards. But if you got that going where it was a big enough faction, then when you are potentially self-sufficient and properly educated to the truth, you cannot be enslaved.
That's really the whole point about it, and it's also why when we went to war over in Vietnam, why did we bomb farmers?
Right.
And what's happening in America now on the West Coast, we've got the radiation coming in and contaminating our foods and our water supplies.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Gulf, we had an oil rig blow up and we've got photographs and videos of a bright beam of light coming down from the heavens hitting it.
Wow.
And the same things happened in Japan. These nuclear power plants destroyed.
Oh, yeah.
And that could have been a bomb on the fault line. I believe that they're planning on making dividing the United States in half, breaking off every interstate that we got with an inland sea that we call the Mississippi River right now.
Well, we just passed the corridor 3 times in our trip to San Antonio and back yesterday.
You got what? To repeat that? Kay and I just passed over the corridor 3 times on our way back from San Antonio yesterday. I was paying attention to it, and they're running that thing right down through the middle of Texas. You know, supposed to be going clear to Canada. Running alongside, yeah, with customs being put now in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Control access.
Right. I don't even recall giving anybody permission to build this thing, but man, if they did our roads around here like that, we wouldn't have any bumps. That thing is magnificently built. But we're broke. Oh, wait a minute. No, we must not be broke. We must not owe people too much money, because we're able to, didn't our president give somebody a loan and then also forgive a debt to one of our enemies? Maybe I'm
more
mistaken.
times than I count. We have 150 countries that we're giving foreign aid to.
Right.
We are funding this whole new world order, one world government from the pockets of the American taxpayers.
And yet we can't buy a tank full of gas without having to hock something.
Right.
And you and I both, I'm going to tell you personally, and I don't know if you know Randall Mock, he worked in the oil and gas industry too. We will both tell you, and so will Lindsey Williams, it is unconscionable for the oil and gas industry in this country to charge $3 and something a gallon for gasoline. It doesn't take near that to get it to that pump.
No, and we're not allowed to put it. They stopped us from drilling in Texas. They cracked down on the independent oil men, you know.
Yeah. And they
they
shut down most of the production from Alaska. They're not even letting all that out.
It's not being nothing in the country is being run in our favor. If there's only 186 countries in the world, and we're supporting 150 of them.
We ought to be the most powerful nation in the world, right? we're their sugar daddy.
Yeah. How did somebody in my chat room just put it really well? He said. But you know, the gasoline. I mean, it's we ran our automobiles and our tractors on alcohol made right around the corner at your farm, and then suddenly our grandfathers, great uncles became bootleggers and moonshiners. Oh yeah, Gary says you're never broke if you can print your own money.
Yeah.
And Thomas Jefferson told us, Jake, if you allow the private bank to issue your money, the banks and the corporations that spring up around them will leave you broke in the land that we conquered.
Well, the FDIC...
Leave your children homeless, and we've got 1 million families out of work right now.
But you know, the Federal Reserve is not our own. It's under the control of the Rothschilds, the European Common Market, and FDIC. Wait a minute, we're going to insure my money, my deposit against what? You're going to steal it, so I have to have insurance for that corporation? Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, that right there is a false fiat approach to banking. If I put my money in the bank and you give me a certificate, which is a contract or a document that is good for redeeming that piece of work, something that is of worth, like gold, silver, whatever, that should be viable currency because it represents a real thing. But we don't have that anymore, so the bankers take over because they are the ones that have the control of the printed money, which is not the real thing.
You know, that's our real enemy here. That's the real boogeyman here, and everything else. The Chinese, the Russians, the Jews, the Muslims. These are all distractions, and the banksters are funding both sides.
Yeah. Well, and Jesus said it, the love of money is the root of all evil because greed drives the countries that go astray. And we're right there.
Now, if we did Liberty Villages and we let veterans live there and work there, and we paid them in script like Ithaca hours, which they could pay for their room or their housing and all that. If we put low-cost structures on there, I mean, Indians lived here in this country pretty happily till before we came here, in teepees, in huts, in adobe, in rockwork.
But you're really talking about a system of supply and demand and a barter system that has always worked.
Yes, it's always worked.
always worked. It's always been viable.
Now, with the technology that we have for solar and wind, I mean, a simple wind generator, you can take two 50-gallon barrels, cut them in half, mount them on an axle, and you got a wind generator. Put an alternator on that, and you can keep your battery charged.
Well, but you see, you're creating a problem for this government we have, because they want to be in control, and if we're controlling our own food supply and producing all of our own goods and operating on the barter system, how can they possibly be in control unless they still have hold of our churches and our education?
Every Liberty Village in my plan would have a computer link in every teepee, every yurt, every tent, every trailer, every adobe home, whatever you want to build there.
Network, right?
Yes, a network, and every home would have direct access to the Little Red Schoolhouse for their tots, and to Timothy Bible College for their furthering education.
Well, then you're not going to need a government other than some kind of town meeting once in a while to determine how to handle a problem of trash hauling or something.
If you have 10 families that are responsible for allowing in place generated income, that means keeping the teepees clean, keeping the cabins clean, pulling the weeds in the garden, and milking the goats that are mowing the lawn. You know, to me, that's then we are self-contained, we're self-sufficient, and God has given us every plant on earth for our use, the animals for our use.
If we took all the herbs that were prescribed in the garden when he set things out to begin with, we would be healthier. We have thrown those away, set them aside for the pharmaceutical industry and government control, and that's why we're poisoned and all ill.
So it's this whole thing is feasible, but I believe, Jake, that this is the reason, because I had Liberty Village in the centerfold of the magazine with building number 7 on the cover. I believe that's the reason they tried to set me up and tried to silence me.
Well, you're going to cause a problem because, like I said, you cannot control a self-sufficient, well-educated people. You cannot enslave them. It's impossible.
And if we set one up right now, whether it's in Texas or Sturgis or you know, Arizona, if we set one up right now, I think it would spread across the country like wildfire. And I guarantee you, if you're driving down a back road and you see 10 teepees all lit up, then see a vacancy sign, you're going to stop. And the restaurants that each one would be operated would inform people, would have gift shops, and feed people some good food for a change.
Well, let me tell you something that and this is just me, but I believe this. I believe that if this doesn't spread like wildfire and they don't just pop up everywhere, that there will be an effort made to squelch one or two of them, because they are infectious, and they would have people that actually think for themselves, realizing there's a better way to live.
Yes. Let me see if
I
got a couple of minutes here. Let me see if we've got a caller on the line. Hello, caller. Do you have a question for Dr. Jake Wade? Evidently not. Okay, we'll cut them off here. Sorry about that. All right. Jake, tell me about Timothy Bible College. What are despite everything that's happened, you're still open, you're still doing people, you still got students. Tell me about it.
Well,
we got 3 minutes left. 3 minutes left, and the link to your website is up right below the show.
Okay. We have altered everything so that it is predominantly on CD with some DVD backups, but it is laid out on CD. We operate classes on almost a daily basis on Skype, where we can actually either by typing or vocal teaching, answer questions and do some teaching online. We also are running around all Central Texas as traveling professors, and we have a group that meets in various different cities, and we do our students that way. But it's we're still trying to get this out because it's all Bible-based, and it uses independent authors like yourself and myself and Tex Mars and people like that have written things which are truth. David Barton and his original intent, which goes back and does real history on the United States. These things, Kent Hovind for science, he goes back and does the creationist approach to science so that the students we graduate have this true information, and they are far out producing and out doing everybody else academically when they go to college. We graduated 9 from our high school last year, and they all ended up in college and are excelling.
All right. Dr. Jake Wade, my friend, and I'm going to be consulting with you a lot on this book that I'm writing.
Great.
How many times is Lucifer mentioned in the Bible? And why does he have the same name as Jesus, as the light bearer?
I didn't hear the last question again.
They just call him he's only mentioned, I believe, 1 time in the Bible.
Isaiah 14, right?
Yes. Why is that?
Because the writers of the Bible were inspired by God not to give him a whole lot of credibility. He is Satan, which is not a flattering term. He is the beast. He is the serpent. Those are not flattering terms. They're not intended to be. Lucifer, light bearer, maybe even leader of his heavenly choir, is not something he gets to use anymore. It's like people using the title Father in, well, I know certain religions think that's okay, but it's not biblically accurate. Matthew 23, Jesus said don't use that as the term for an office because you have no right to it. There's only one with that office. It's the same way with Lucifer. Lucifer's now not a holder of that office, so he's only mentioned once in Isaiah as a way of identifying him.
All right. I'll be talking with you more about that as I work on my next novel. All right.
But you know what you do to me when you go to that sort of thing, you get me started. I'm sorry, I just
Well, I can fix that.
Recording has been completed.
How's that?
All right. God bless, sir.
God bless you. Thank you, Jake.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Names are meaningless. You're meaningless, you fucking idiot. You're no rabbi. You are probably Jewish, but you're no rabbi.